Okay. Listen, first let me begin by saying there's an old adage that character is not built in a crisis, it's only exhibited. And I have to tell you, I am incredibly proud of the character that I have seen exhibited by 77 employees of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, who I have had the unfortunate responsibility of laying off these last 2 days. I know that the issue of our budget crisis in Jacksonville and its direct impact on public safety has been on everyone's mind. First, I should tell you that a recently filed unfair labor practice charge that was filed against me by the police union was summarily dismissed earlier this week. That charge was made as a result of my address to our officers at recent roll calls. I will reiterate many of the same things I told those officers in my attempt to avoid this reduction in force. Our commitment to protect and serve the citizens of Jacksonville is inviolate. No matter how much we must change our operations, service to our citizens remains our top priority. We respond to calls, we investigate crimes, we solve crimes, we prevent crimes from happening. And we will continue to do that in every neighborhood, every community, every sector, every subsector of this city. Now let me recap for you what's been going on this last week. This week I eliminated 129 additional positions from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. This latest round of cuts included 29 civilian jobs and 48 police officers being laid off. This was in addition to the $7.5 million in cuts I made before I presented my budget to the mayor. A list of cuts identified you in our documents and on this chart. The 7.5 is listed at the top on that chart, as you see over there. That's 19 civilian positions. We eliminated 41 police positions. I'm not going to read that whole list. You can see the list up there for yourself. However, included in the layoffs this week are 14 community service officers, 10 CSAs, 1 medical doctor at our jail, 1 employee assistance program counselor, 1 information technology person, 1 police planner, 1 stable manager, and 48 police officers. Also, I have unfunded 52 positions in addition to the positions I have already unfunded in the first $7.5 million in cuts. These are positions that were either vacant or were vacated as a result of our reorganization. Those positions are 2 lieutenants, 23 police officers, 1 corrections captain, 1 corrections sergeant, 2 corrections officers, 6 community service officers, 1 account technician, 1 clinical operations manager, 1 fingerprint technician, 1 personnel clerk, 2 emergency communications officers, 1 police service technician, and 10 positions eliminated due to reorganization. And the reorganization impacted the following positions, resulting in demotions: 1 police chief, 3 assistant chiefs, 1 which is now filled by a reverted chief, 3 police lieutenants, 1 now filled by a reverting AC, assistant chief, and 5 sergeants, 2 of which are now filled by reverting lieutenants, and 1 corrections sergeant position. These reversions are all guided by civil service rules, as have been all the personnel actions that I have taken this week. But as people with seniority lose their positions, this cascade means that the people of lower seniority lose theirs. And this did in fact impact the final number of 48 officers that had to be laid off. We're now moving into our next step, which is the reassignment of personnel. And I will be taking more seasoned officers from other areas of the agency and placing them in vacated patrol positions. Our core competency is public safety. We have adjusted organizationally, and I'm confident that emergency police services will not be impacted by these cuts. However, citizens may experience a somewhat slower response time to non-emergency calls for service. Until my salary expenses are reduced to match my salary revenue, we will continue as we are now in our staffing. I'll take any questions.
Sheriff, people have a hard time grasping the numbers, just people out in the community. What can you talk, when they hear layoffs for police officers, they want to know, are they less safe? Are they as safe? You spoke a little bit about it, but what would you tell people who are on the streets just asking you, what about my community?
Well, our response to those non-emergency situations is going to be impacted. It's going to be slower.
What is that?
But
car accidents? Is that what you're talking about?
It can be non-injury car accidents, minor property thefts, those sorts of things. The response may be slower for an officer to get out there because we're simply not going to have as many investigations may take longer, those sorts of things.
Sheriff, if you do ask to refill those positions, the officers, what is I understand there's a large training cost to incur from Jacksonville Sheriff's Office to train new officers to come in. Now, how are you going to handle that with the budget cuts?
Well, the idea would be that those officers who have been reverted or laid off, they go on to a rehire list, and they are available for rehire, and they would not have to go through all that retraining and all of that. But the cost to train an officer, I don't know, somewhere around $60,000 to $70,000.
So the number of officers on the streets, I guess the beat cops, the guys in patrol units, is not going to be affected by these?
Patrol is not going to be affected.
Okay. Now, can we talk about you talked about the reassignment of positions. I know in the past you've mentioned the Marine unit. Can you talk about what units will be affected here?
Yes, yes. In fact, I have a list that I will give to you all, but just to give you an idea, we will be backfilling from our crime prevention multi-housing unit, from our crime prevention unit, internal affairs, a mounted unit, as you mentioned earlier, parks, our parks officers, academy, internal affairs, international affairs, Operations Safe Streets, the aviation unit, the academy, inspections. It runs the gamut of the agency.
In Operation Safe Streets, that's the unit that goes into the troubled spots of the city. So that
yes, those are the ones that we're able to move. We won't have as many of those officers to move. We still have some, but we're scaling it back.
John, have you met with Nelson Cuba this week at all? Have you had any discussions with him?
So I'm down here both nights that we were laying officers off, and yeah, I had a discussion with him.
And what was the result of that? What was the crux of the discussion?
Well, I told him until my salary expenses meet my salary revenue, these layoffs have to remain, and it's clearly in their hands between the city and the union.
Did he make any offers to you?
No.
None at all? Let me ask, when it comes to things like IT, take-home cars, your staff, and anything else, have you identified any more waste at all? No. Have you identified anything else that you could have cut?
Jim, we have cut. Look, this is the list of cuts up here. We've had to cut $18 million. And this is not the first round of cuts. And you need to understand also that, the last several budget cycles, the cuts that we have made have been to civilians, trying to save our police positions. But when we get to this point, there's nothing left but police positions. Now, you can say take-home cars, but with fewer officers on the street, those take-home cars become more important, not less. They handle, when you're 176,000 calls off duty, that reduces our response time tremendously. That helps keep a police presence out there in the community. Doing away with the take-home car plan is not the way to go.
How about the IT plan? Council President Joe suggested a possible combining of city and SOIT.
Well, that's because he doesn't understand police IT. We don't do the same thing that city IT does. Lean, we're a member of the Lean Consortium. Where you can combine like functions, you should. These are not like functions. They don't run the intelligence databases that we run. They don't run the systems that we run. This is not running Microsoft Word on people's laptops on their desktop. So it's a lot different than is being done by city IT. We don't duplicate anything that they do. And any place where we can get some economy of scale, for example, our automatic vehicle locator system. We went in with the fire department and others to get that system. So we look for that economy of scale where we can. but there's, you know, there simply isn't any there.
So you're satisfied that you have found everywhere throughout the agency that you could cut, other than people?
What I have cut is what I believe will have the least significant negative impact upon public safety, yes.
The 48.
I mean, certainly you could cut other things, but it will significantly impact on public safety.
May I ask you, what did you consider?
Well, I mean, like more police officers, for example.
Okay.
You know, those sorts of things.
48 officers that were let go, we were told they were from the last 2 rookie classes out of the academy of last year's and this
Right.
year's. Is that true?
I believe that is correct.
Okay. Is there any hope for those guys within the next year? I mean, realistically, bringing any of those officers back? I know a lot of them have already had job offers, I'm told, by the union in other
Yeah.
counties, you know, so they're kind of getting snatched up right now. Is there any hope in the next calendar year to bring
Well,
those guys back?
look, I certainly hope so. I hope as soon as this situation between the union and the city is settled, that my revenues will meet my expenses on salary, and I'll be able to hire all these folks back. Look, the 4.4 million that we're talking about, if you look at the cost of the 48 officers that we just laid off, that's 3.3 million. That more than covers those 48 officers that were laid off. Then you get down to the vacancies, the 23 vacancies that we've unfunded or cut. That's 1.5 million. So we could almost bring all of even the vacancies that we had, we could bring back. Now, what I would do before that would be to look at some of these other places, for example, like our community service officers, where we're cutting 20 positions. Well, there's 6 here and 14 up here. We actually sent, this is the reduction in force, these 14 plus these 6, I could bring those 20 back. So there's, you know, with that 4.4 million, which represents coincidentally 2%, and the reduction of the 5% health, I could bring all those police officers back.
Do you think that Nelson is being unreasonable?
That's for someone else to decide.
You know, what do you think? I mean, what, you know?
I'm not going to have another unfair labor practice filed against me. That's not my point.
John, did you meet with any of the officers that were let go? Did you
I met with every one of them,
Yeah. shook
their hand, told them I appreciated their service and that I hoped that this would get resolved and I would be able to bring them all back, because and that's why I say I'm very proud of those guys. Their attitude was commendable.
How was it handled? Was it, I mean, did they have to come in and turn in their gear and stuff? I mean, how did it work?
Yep.
And their take-home cars as well?
Yes.
How did they get home?
We took them home.
Really?
What does it cost to train those guys for 8 months? You know, you train them for
Well,
so long, and then you can't.
Well, it takes about 11 months.
Yeah, 11 months
for the whole thing. And it's about $60,000 or $70,000.
So it's a large chunk of money right there, just training these guys. And
Oh
not
yeah,
being able
certainly.
to
Well, that's why
use them.
you know, I hope we can get all of these folks back. I don't want to have to train new people to take their positions.
Sheriff, where the rubber meets the road on the front line, will any particular area of the city be impacted more than another with the service and personnel?
No, as I mentioned, Roger, I've got the places where the officers were cut and the places that they're being backfilled from. And I'll provide that to you. And it's across the gamut. You know, our academy, well, I'm not going to read the whole list, but it's significant.
Sure. Last year when the ports and the schools decided to start using private security firms, wasn't that about 40 officers that were put back on the streets?
No, that was...
Would have been additional officers on the streets over the last few months.
No, that was 41 officers that I cut in the first 7.5 million that I offered up. This is the elimination of those 41 positions. That was 28 SROs and 13 officers at the port.
Sheriff, aside from those 48, do you see yourself laying off any other officers past this point?
That's a very good question, and I want to point this out. On these reductions, you know, the city council took 4.4 million and then put back 3.2. Then that was the second 4.4, not the first, the second 4.4. They put back 3.2. That left 1.2 million that had to come out of my budget. I told city budget to take that money out of my fleet maintenance, because my intention is to privatize my fleet services, including my gas and my repairs, which is going to save me upwards somewhere north of 1.5 million. If I'm not allowed to do that, and I hear the council president and I hear the mayor say, let the sheriff manage his budget. He can manage his budget. Well, you cannot tell me I can manage my budget and then say, well, you can manage all of your budget except this major portion, which is internal services. I have to be able to manage that as well. And I intend to privatize my fleet, which will save this 1.2 million that has not been reduced out of my budget yet. Now, if I'm forced to take it out of salary, which is where budget put it, they refused to take it out of fleet. They put it in my salary account. Now, I'm going forward with the idea that I am going to be able to realize that savings in my fleet. If I can do that, that's 17 officers that will not get that did not get laid off right now. But if I'm not allowed to do that, there's an additional 34 officers that will be laid off in March.
As a result of what? I'm sorry. Explain.
As a result of the 1.2 million not being taken out of my fleet services, where I want it taken from, because I can manage that. And I'm going to manage that by privatizing my fleet services and my gas.
But you're going to privatize, I may have misunderstood you, okay? But you're going to privatize despite the fact that you may have to lay off? Is that correct? Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, privatizing the fleet
Right.
services, yes.
And will that cause a layoff if those salary dollars are not put back? I'm a little confused.
No, privatizing my fleet services is like repairs to my vehicles.
Yes.
So I've got there's a company out there, I'm going to piggyback on JEA's contract. This guy's guaranteeing me 1.5 million plus. So I'll be able to take that money and put that in my salary account to save those officers' positions.
What was that number again?
17, see, and here's what you have to realize about this budget. If I wanted to save all of that money right now, I'd have to start today by laying 17 officers off, okay, to cover that shortage in my salary account.
So you're still really in the red, is what it sounds like.
Yes,
unless this
1.2
goes
million.
through. Okay, so
1.2 million.
So you're really not out
but
of
I'm
the
not
woods.
laying these guys off, because I'm gonna fill this hole through fleet, through privatizing my fleet and saving that money, and then keeping these 17. Actually, by that point, it'll be, if I'm not allowed to do that, in March I'm laying off another 34 police officers.
On top of the 17?
No, that 17 becomes 34 because it's 6 months. For a year, that's 17 officers. For 6 months' salary, that's 34.
Right, so you're saying if you can't privatize your fleet, you will have to lay off 34 officers in March
Correct.
to make up for that 1.2?
Correct.
And what will prevent you from privatizing?
Well, that's up to the mayor and the city council.
They have to give approval for you to do
Right.
that? To use
Right.
those dollars that way?
Correct.
Okay.
When do we expect to hear back from them regarding that?
We're already in some talks with the city council about that. And look, they understand we need to do this as well.
Sean, can I ask, at the end of the day, for people that are listening or will be reading eventually when technology actually works, what is the bottom line for John and Jane Doe's citizen in terms of what we're discussing here today? What would you say the bottom line is?
Well, I hope that the response time that they see to non-emergency stuff won't be too bad. But I honestly believe that the emergency response will be fine. Because we're backfilling every one of these positions. Now, will be slower response, through investigations possibly. We're not going to have a mounted unit. So, we won't be doing some of the things that we used to do in the past. Our crime prevention officer who might go out and talk to children and those sorts of things, those we simply cannot do. we can simply no longer do those things.
So despite the fact that you'll be able to cover priority one calls, if you will, you know, that those other services that are still, my sense is, that you think, you believe are very important to the community are going to be either reduced or not eliminated.
Correct.
And what is your thought about that?
It's not good. We need to fix it. And with 4.4 million, I could.
Was your budget affected at all by the pursuit of grant funds at all? Being that they come and go at certain points, sometimes they're unfunded. You know, was that affecting your budget at all?
Yes, that did affect us to the tune of $3.3 million. Right here, 3.355. Now, I can tell you, Congresswoman Corinne Brown reached out to me the other day. We've sent her an email this morning, kind of laying giving her the lay of the land. They're going to try to go back to the Cops More office and see if they can, her and Congressman Crenshaw, and see if there's anything that they can do to help us out on that front.
On the ball, we've got the impending doom right now, but in the future, with what you're going through right now, will that affect your ability to get in quality candidates to fill deputies as they look to get a job, start their first job? You know, will these budget problems affect those kind of candidates coming in?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you mean. It will
People
certainly
be afraid to come here because they're worried they won't have a job in a year. You know?
Oh, well, if we, no, I don't believe so. I think if we hire them, they know we're gonna keep them after all these cuts. I mean,
Sheriff, one of the growing concerns is the pension cost. That doesn't address this, but you could talk about that. I talked to Michael Hallett yesterday, and he said that's the big elephant in the room for the sheriff's office and the city. We have to get the pension cost in line, or the city's facing bankruptcy potentially.
yeah, that is a major piece of this. And in fact, I had to make up $1,079,000 as a result of the actuarial that was redone on the general employees pension fund. And that $1,079,000 was in that first, I'm sorry, that was in the council action. Where'd that go? Here it is. Yeah.
Last question? Anybody?
Yeah, as far as moving forward, I was going to ask you about 2012, 2013 budget, you know, because the environment, people don't seem to think things are going to get much better quickly, but from what it sounds like, you're still dealing with this current budget, this fiscal budget, and trying to get out of the woods there, right? I mean, are you looking forward, looking ahead to years?
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, look, I hear this argument, you know, that, well, you know, the city's got money. Well, number one, that doesn't mean it belongs to us. And number two, there is next year looming. And it's going to be more difficult than this year. So absolutely, I'm thinking of the future.
Are you concerned about this current city council's attitude, at least a segment of it, towards public safety or the sheriff's office? Are you? I mean, I noticed there's some back and forth there with some council folks, and I mean, I know over the years that I don't know. It's the most contentious kind of sort of that I've seen it in a while.
No, look. I think that council supports public safety. I think they support the JSO. In fact, if you look, the vast majority voted to support giving us back that second 4.4, or well, at least most of it, 3.2. So no, those that voted for that, they clearly support public safety, and I think they understand that. And I believe, Jim, those that didn't because they are also concerned about, you know, as you asked, what's coming next year. You know, so it's not as simple as do you support public safety or not. It's where are these dollars coming from.
With these officers that are laid off, are JSO providing any services to the laid off officers to help them find employment somewhere else?
Yes, we have. And you know, let me conclude with this too. You know, these officers that we have laid off, we're doing everything we can to assist them, and I am and I'll close with this, I am incredibly, incredibly proud of the character that I saw displayed by those men and women that were losing their jobs. It was truly uplifting.
To reiterate, if the union takes the 2%, you can bring all these people back, or at least all the officers back.
Yes. Just that simple. Thank you.